Today I'm back in my Dwarf Jade that I've been growing for the last couple of years, and it's really started to develop, even though it's in this small pot. I do want to wire some of the branches down here, but first it needs repotted. Luckily it's springtime here, so it's the perfect time. Although you can get away with repotting these at different times of the year. But anyway, it's an aggressive grower, both on top and with the roots, so we'll have filled this pot, and that needs sorted out before we do anything else. Seems to be in there pretty tight, so maybe I can just pull it out, or maybe not. It looks like it needs a little raking to loosen things up. If I just remove some soil from around the top and the edge, it should give it enough room to wiggle it out. And it should just slide out. And that seemed to do the job. So you can see it's a very dense root ball. It's going to take a while to rake out. I actually had someone try and tell me that the soil I was using was wrong, or that it was bad and too sandy. And that's what was causing the really compacted root ball, and that's why it had turned to like cement. That's simply not true. This soil is absolutely perfect for this species. Let me show you it here. It's still loose, large particles. The root ball is simply this dense as the tree is a beast and it grows so many roots. The tree's vigour is the issue, not the soil. This soil is also perfectly reusable, and I probably will add some of it back into the pot later on. The only thing that might stop this tree getting so root bound would be a bigger pot, although I would imagine it would still manage to fill a bigger pot within a year. These trees are serious when it comes to growing, especially when you give them all the right conditions like I do. After a lot of raking, I was left with this. It's a nice little root ball, but really, just look at that trunk. This tree is only ever grown in that small pot, so to get a base like this is pretty incredible. I really can't imagine how insane it would be if it was actually in a larger pot. But either way, it's certainly growing very well in this soil that I've been using. So I just pruned it back. It didn't need any real work, just shortened. And then I repotted it back into the same pot. It's the usual story where I just don't have enough space to accommodate a larger one. But it's a nice little root ball. If it keeps doing what it's doing, it's going to be a great tree. So that should give it a little bit of space for a while, but I'm sure we'll fill things up pretty quickly again. If you remember from the last video on this tree, I was saying how this tree is quite narrow, like the growth is more upright, and I want to pull some branches down and spread things out, which is what I'll do as soon as it settles down here. I just sort of wire the tree into the pot, which I normally don't bother with, but this tree is really top heavy, so it needs a little bit of support. But it's still a little wobbly, so I don't want to start cranking down the branches until it's gripped into the pot and feels a bit more stable. But as we know, this tree is a root machine, so it won't take long for it to do that. In June, it does feel more stable. You can just tell when you pick it up. So I'll begin the process of pulling some branches down. You'll see I use guy wires, which is for two reasons. The first being that this species is kind of funky when it comes to wiring. You have to remember it's a succulent, so it's not quite got the same flexibility as a normal tree. And then secondly, which is more important here, it's just the fact that it's a small, dense tree. Just trying to get my hands in there and wrapping wire around things, it's just not going to happen very well without causing all sorts of damage. So you're just going to have to deal with the ugly anchor points for a while. But you can see here, it's put on a lot of growth on, so it's time to prune it back. It's just going to be the usual thing of snipping any long shoots back, and this will encourage more growth. Also, going back to the wiring, you'll see I really only did the left and the right sides here as we're looking at it. I just did that as I didn't want to stress the tree too much and want to make sure it didn't freak out before doing the rest. But then when I actually put it back in the grow tent, I realised that it was now taking up a lot more space. So I was going to give it a month or two to bend the other sides down, but you'll see I didn't get around to doing that. I will do it at some point, but I think a few things need to be removed from the grow tent first, as there's just not enough space for everything currently. Anyway, in August, you see that all the growth has bounced right back, so it's going to get pruned again. I really just can't explain how aggressive this species is, and just generally how different it is compared to other species. It really is one of my favourites. You can work on them and they just bounce right back. I'm also sure some of you are thinking that my branch bending, well, lowering seems a bit extreme or just weird looking. But with time it will look much better. The branches will slowly creep upwards, but more importantly they will get a lot denser with foliage. And that will really change how they look. The tree will be much more fuller looking. It's just very much a work in progress right now. In September it's mostly grown back, maybe not as aggressively as before, but there's plenty of shoots that can be pruned back, so I'll do exactly that. Here I'm just imagining how things would have been if I had pulled some other branches down, but that will happen at some point. You can see from here a lot of the shoots are not too long, but you can still prune them back on this species. You don't need it to let them grow out super long to thicken things up like other trees. Just the act of pruning alone will cause more subdivision and more leaves, and the more leaves you have on these, the thicker they get. So more pruning is actually better for the overall development of its thickness. But you'll also say I have to go through and check every individual branch tip and decide if it's ready to be pruned or not. So it can take a while to prune this tree, but it's also super fun. In October it's looking pretty good, but I'm going to leave it alone now. I will be lowering the light levels ever so slightly, so the speed at which it grows is going to slow down. I also imagine that the pot is very ram-packed of roots now, which will always affect how quickly things grow. So really, for now, it's just going to be allowed to chill out, and then when it gets to spring, I'll pretty much just repeat what happened in this video again. Another repot, hopefully some more wiring, and pruned as needed. I'm not sure if you can see it very well here, but in December, some of the older leaves have gone a bit yellow or have fallen off. That's nothing to really worry about. It's just a mixture of them being old and there being less light, but it's perfectly normal. And when spring comes, it will fill back in and be very dense of foliage again. When I look back at how this tree started, which was just a tiny twig I broke off a bush at a hotel, it's pretty incredible how much it has grown, how much it's managed to develop, especially since it's only ever been this small pot here. I think if I can give it a bit more space and keep working on it, it'll hopefully end up looking really cool. Oh, and here's a view from the top so you can get a sense of how wide it is. And here it is now, so it's just chilling. But it'll be spring soon. I'm super happy with this tree so far. Thanks for watching, see you next time.